I love poppy seed rolls so much I could make it every week, even though it's considered a holiday bread in Eastern Europe. It's called Makowiec in Polish. And the key to a poppy seed filling is you have to grind the poppy seeds. It releases the oils and releases the flavor. You used to have to do it with one of these. And this was not easy because you had to clamp it. This comes off. You had to clamp it on the counter and do it manually by hand. But I found a better way because I got a spice grinder. Now, I've tried a blender and I've tried a food processor, but a spice grinder will do the job, although you can't dump everything in at once. I'll show you. Okay, I'm going to start the filling now, and this is 1 cup of poppy seeds. And I found that with a spice grinder, you only do about 2 spoons at a time, like 2 teaspoons like this, level or mounted teaspoons. Just 2 at a time, because if you put too much in, it slows down the machine. So we're going to grind for about 10 seconds. Okay, and then this pops off, and you dump the seeds in there, and you do it again. So I think it takes about 8 times or 9 times. Okay. Now, while you have the grinder out, we're going to grind the almonds. It's 1/4 cup of almonds, and these are toasted almonds. Okay, that's all done. So these are ground, as you can see, and I'm going to set this aside. And what we're going to do before we move on is we're going to add 1/3 cup of boiling water, which I have boiled here, because we want to soften these up a little bit. And you have to use a metal measuring cup with boiling water. So 1/3 cup of boiling water, and we just stir it up, get some water into all the poppy seeds. And while this cools down a little bit and absorbs the water, we're going to set it aside. We set aside the poppy seeds and the almonds. And now we're going to make the dough. Okay, so it's I use bread flour. You can use all-purpose flour, but bread flour really is better when you're using yeast. So we're going to start with 1½ cups of bread flour into a mixer. Okay, and then we're going to add 1 package of active dry yeast, not the instant kind, just regular active dry yeast. It doesn't have to be proofed, by the way. We're going to add 1/4 cup of sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now that's the dry ingredients. We're going to just mix that up a little bit. Okay. Now we're going to add 2/3 cup of milk. 1% milk is what I always use. And it should be heated up to 110 degrees. And while that's stirring, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of oil. I use a non-GMO canola oil. You can use extra light olive oil or whatever oil you decide to use. And 1 egg. Okay, now we're going to beat that on high for 2 minutes. Okay, it's been 2 minutes, and we're actually going to still leave it on low. And now I'm going to stir in about 3/4 cup of additional flour, just till it becomes kind of a fairly firm-looking dough. Okay. Okay, I've cleared off the table. I've placed my board here. We're going to knead the dough now. And you can do it on the kitchen counter too, but if you have a board, it's good for kneading. So we're going to put a little flour on the board. And we're going to get the dough. You can knead this with a machine if it works for you. It just doesn't work for me, so I do it by hand. Okay? All right. And a scraper really, really helps when you're doing it by hand. So it's 100 turns, so it takes about 2 minutes. So there's 1, 2, 3, 99, 100. When you knead, you're basically stretching and kind of pressing the dough. So 100, you can see it's all set to go. You press it down. If it pops back up, it's ready. So now we're going to rest this dough for 10 minutes, and you cover it with something. I'm going to cover it with a little plastic wrap for about, oh, don't you hate when the, I found it. Oh my God. Oh wait, can't they? Okay, you know what? All right. There it is. All right, we're going to cover this with plastic for 10 minutes. And while that rests for 10 minutes, we're going to finish making the filling. So the poppy seeds are pretty much cooled. They had that hot water added to them. Now we're going to stir in the rest of the ingredients, which is the ground almonds, which is a 1/4 cup of ground almonds, a 1/2 cup of sugar, and a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla. Okay, whoops. A little bit more doesn't hurt. And then finally, I'll stir this up first, and I'm going to add one of the really great things in this is the lemon zest and orange zest. And now it's going to be the zest of a 1/2 lemon and a 1/2 an orange. And not too much lemon, because I think the orange is really what is more important than the lemon, but lemon is definitely traditional. All right, so this is a big orange, so I think that's just about 1/2 of the orange. Okay, so that's the final thing to put into the filling. You scrape this into the poppy seeds. Okay, so there's the filling. If you could smell it, you'd be in the kitchen right now making this bread. It's awesome. And you know, I don't put a lot of water in. You can see it's fairly dry, and that's good because it'll keep it from sort of seeping out of the bread when you make the bread, when you bake the bread. Okay, so I've got my board back in place. I've lined a baking sheet with parchment paper, and now we're going to roll this dough and then roll up the filling inside. So, okay, it's all ready to go. Just going to flour the board a little bit more. And now we're going to roll this into, I usually measure it like 10 by 12. So if it sticks, you put a little flour on the top. I always like to make sure that the dough is loose off the board before you start rolling so it doesn't stick. But see how it keeps going back? Well, that's good. That's a sign of a good dough. Okay, it's 10 inches across and 12 inches long, so that's perfect. Okay, now the fun part. Here's the filling. Okay, I'm just going to dump it on there and just kind of spread it around. So this smells so amazing, and you don't get that if you don't grind the seeds, so that's very important. So we're going to spread it to almost the edges, and never all the way to the end, but almost to the edges. You know, every time I make something Polish like this, I remember a song my dad used to sing to me in Polish. You want to hear it? No? Twoje nogi pachną cudnie, rano wieczór I południe. You had to be there. Okay. So spread it just to the edges. Try and bake it as even as possible. I start from the 10-inch end like this and just roll. Not too hard, not too tight, not too loose. Just roll it naturally like that. And when you get to the end, I usually just stretch the ends a little bit, and then like that. And then I put it seam side down on the baking sheet. Okay, let me move this over to show you how I do it. Okay, all right, so now I just seal the edges. You kind of tuck in the filling if it's there. I just kind of pinch it like that, and then just tuck the ends in. And that's it. Same thing on the other end. Kind of pinch it closed, and I tuck it in. And kind of try to get it an even shape. All right. I think that's good. Now we're going to cover this with a towel. I can use this. And we're going to rise it in a warm spot for an hour and a half. And after an hour and a half, it's going to be all puffed up and ready for the oven. All right, after an hour and a half, this is what it's going to look like. It'll be doubled in size and ready for the oven. Now, there's a couple of things you can do. There's all kinds of different toppings for this. You can, right now, before you bake it, brush it with an egg wash, which is an egg yolk with a little bit of water. Sprinkle it with poppy seeds, which I love. It gets glossy and really, really good. Some people brush it with melted butter. I'm going to bake it plain, and then we're going to put like a glaze on it. So put it into a preheated 350-degree oven for 35 minutes, and that's it. Okay, it's been 35 minutes. Let's see how it looks. All right, here it comes. Okay, Now, when you're baking, if stuff browns a little too much on the top, reds and stuff, I put a little foil tint on it like that. So, oh my God, look at that. It's all done. The only thing left now is to put like an icing, like a glaze on it, but you have to let it cool for 10 minutes. So I'll be back in 10 minutes and we'll finish it all up. Be right back. Bye. See how it seeps out just a little bit? That's perfectly normal. Perfectly normal. Nothing wrong with that. So, but I'm going to show you the pretty side. All right. So now we're going to put a simple glaze on it. It's basically powdered sugar and milk. I have 1 cup of powdered sugar in here. And I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of milk. So let me do it here where you can see. So there's 1 tablespoon. I'll start with 1 tablespoon. Always, when you do these glazes, just add the liquid really slowly because you'd be surprised how easy it is to add too much and then you're kind of stuck. So it's usually about 2 tablespoons. This to me is just right. So, all right, so you can do it whichever direction you want. You can go up and down, you can go this way. So I'll just kind of do it and see where it lands. Okay. Oh, God, look at this. Is this awesome? Now, the trick is going to be waiting to take a bite. There it is. All right, now you would want to cool it just a little bit, but I want you to see the inside of the bread, so I'm going to give it a slice. And it's still going to be a little bit messy, but I'll go ahead. Okay. Yeah, it's still pretty warm, as you can see. It's hard not to want to take that first bite. Okay. Look at this. Yikes. How awesome. You know what? You cannot buy this in any store. It is so worth making. This is a comfort food for not just Polish people, Hungarians, Ukrainians, Yugoslavians, Russians, Czechoslovakians. I had a Czechoslovakian friend who was actually coming to town because I was making this bread. Her flight was canceled, so she didn't make it. I guess she was a canceled Czech. The bread is better than the joke. I realize that.